I'd like to hear a little bit about your role at Microsoft. You've been there for what, 10 years
10
or so?
years.
You must have seen a lot of change. You must have witnessed some of these technologies coming in through the bathroom window and through the back door and so on, as they have over the years. Can you comment on your experience there?
Well, it's a multifaceted role. It's rooted in evangelism and technology strategy as it relates to application development, app architecture, and the changing role of IT from the executive level all the way down to a lot of the IT community, which we engage with very heavily for things like hypervisor certification on Hyper-V and things like that. And so it's been interesting watching the change happen from that angle of the business, where there's a lot of tension in the system right now. The things that I think people read about in the trade press that relate to these big technology megatrends tend to revolve around cloud computing and mobile and social and big data. And as it relates to IT in particular, there's a lot of consumerization and consumer devices coming to work that's been, I think, written about ad nauseum for a couple of years. And the big shift going on here is really the change of control, of influence, of decision-making power. The thing that I think makes this most interesting is that it's the first time in the, 40, 50-year history of the tech industry that consumers are actually calling the shots. It was always the case that new leading-edge technology was so expensive that the only people that could afford it were the businesses that were deep-pocketed relative to consumers. And as prices came down, consumers would come in on the trailing edge and make these things popular. This is what happened with the PC, of which Microsoft was a big beneficiary of that in the 90s. But what's happening now is consumer electronics are cheap out of the box. And so all the technology adoption curves that have been written over the years and effectively shaped by business, by the pace at which businesses adopted technology, are all being rewritten and reshaped by consumers. And it was interesting listening to Joe and Scott in the earlier panel talk about the age-old criticism of IT not moving fast enough. Well, now the users can move as fast as they want because they can go buy these very fast, capable, affordable, cool, sexy devices, and push IT, I think, in decision-making directions that it wouldn't have otherwise been pushed in.
What are some examples that you've seen of the way in which the cloud changes the way that IT developers and end users all work together? I mean, are there things going on in that relationship, in that dynamic, that we should pay attention to in terms of the potential for innovation?
Well, users are almost like a special class, right? They come to work with a little bit more swagger because they wield a little bit more power and said, hey, I'm going to use this device whether you like to or not, and figure out a way to join it to the network. And I've just heard story after story about user empowerment impacting, I think, some of the more responsible things that IT is trying to do in negative ways. I mean, the analogy about the reason cars have brakes is to allow us to safely go faster. That's a great analogy because IT is basically in a position of responsibility for ensuring governance, compliance, having to answer to regulators and all those sorts of things. And users just don't, I think, spend a lot of time thinking about that.
Who's managing the metadata? Who's doing governance over data? And I think there's another area. Wouldn't you agree that's
absolutely
crying for some attention?
Absolutely, and it's going to live in multiple places, and there's obviously a security pivot around that. There's an argument to be made that cloud computing actually gives you an opportunity to be more secure about data, because the people walking out the door every night with keychain thumb drives with corporate assets on them, that predated the cloud. People emailing themselves files to their personal emails so they can work on them at home, that predated the cloud. There's all sorts of bad behaviors going on relative to just sloppy handling of corporate data that I think are motivated by the fact there's not a easy, secure way for people to get access to corporate assets in that way. In a lot of industries, people don't go to work anymore, they just work. They're just running around on the internet, connecting into the corporation from wherever, whatever Starbucks they happen to be in, and making it easy and to get at that data in a secure way using the cloud or approaches similar to that, VPN, could have the potential to do away with some of these bad behaviors. Like I'll just copy all these files to my thumb drive and hope I don't leave it on the train.
Yeah.
And it happens
Well,
all the time.
I'm relieved to hear that we don't have to conclude that the cloud is going to put us all out of jobs, but
No, not at all.
But